Good morning. I'd like to share with you something very simple and experiential, and we call it the headless way, I suppose, and call it what you like. It's noticing something very simple about ourselves, and it's experiential. And I'd just like you to notice that you cannot see your own face. Is that true? Yes, you can't. I can't see my face, I'm sure of that. I can see my nose, or rather I can see two noses. If I close one eye, I have a huge nose curling down from the ceiling to the floor, and the other eye, I've got another one. But for me, they're not coming out of a head. They're just suspended in the openness here. So just bear with me for a few moments here before you say, so what? I'd like you to hold your hands out in front of you. This is a doing thing. So like a child, we just play with it a bit. See? And you can see your hands, obviously. Now slowly bring them back towards and past your head and notice what happens from your point of view. Don't they get bigger? And then the fingers disappear, and then the hands disappear. And then as you bring them forward from your point of view, don't they emerge? True? Yes. This is essentially a non-verbal experience, isn't it? So, right from the beginning, you have the experience, don't you? Yes. Actually, the conversation that can develop from here on is between equals. Because what we are reflecting about is an experience that we all have now. It may mean something to you, it may not, but you have the experience. So you may describe it or react to it, I hope you do, quite differently from the way I do. So the words I use are my words. And hopefully they will be meaningful to you. But if not, just put your own words in, obviously. And I am reacting to this basic experience of openness in my way, and my reaction changes. And your reaction to this basic experience will be different from mine. And that is why it's so interesting to meet and to share our different reactions. Now we start visually, but we will do one or two experiments that are non-visual and see how this works out in one's everyday life, if one chooses to be aware of this perspective and how it makes sense in terms of our ordinary relationships and so on. Hold your hands out in front of you again, because this, in a sense, I would say, is a meditation. It's not an idea primarily, it's a meditation. And you see your hands just looking ahead, and as you bring them back towards you, you're bringing them back into the place you're looking out of. Now, the words I use is, they disappear into the great void, into boundless openness. And then I bring them forwards and they re-emerge out of this openness. It is so obvious. But it is a wonderful thing, I think, and many, many friends agree. To discover this openness is so accessible. You can't see your own face. There's one face in this room you cannot see. For me, it's Richard's face. For you, it's your face. Now, you know, there's an extraordinarily beautiful application of this, or reflection about this. Because when I notice that from my point of view, I don't see my face, obviously I understand from your point of view, you see my face. I'm very happy about that. But from my point of view, I don't see Richard's face. Whose face do I see? Yours. At this moment, I've got 60 plus faces. And if I have a mirror, I've got another one. Richard's face. Richard's face is there in the mirror. That's where it's given. Here is this no face, this openness. Now, the art of this is attention, meditation. It's not a learning thing. There's lots to learn, there's lots to explore, there's lots to discover. It's an endless well of delight and creativity and discovery. It never ends. This is the well at the world's end. This openness. And the very amusing thing is you can point at it directly. You've got to be prepared to be simple. So what I mean is, if you point, it's an experiment. Point at something in front of you. You can point at me or anything. Get your fingers. It's to direct your attention. And notice that what you're looking at has got a shape and a color. It's a thing. This is very obvious. Bring your finger down and point at your knee. And you see color and shape, don't you? Yeah. Yes. Point at your torso. You see the color and shape. Now hold your hand out and point back at where others see your face, the place you are actually looking at, out of now. Now, do you see any color or shape there? I don't. Point a little bit longer. I know, it's not socially kind of the normal thing to do. But I would say I am now pointing at the one place in the universe where I can point at nothing. So now point both ways. We call it two-way pointing, two-way attention. See? So like a child, 5 years old, no problem doing this. Growing up, a bit embarrassing. This indicates, you see, the second finger is now pointing out at all those colors and shapes, isn't it? This indicates to me that this space, this openness, this awareness isn't just empty, it's also full. And it's full of my unique view out, and it's full for you of your unique view out. It's a wonderful thing. This emptiness is always full of something. It's a mystery. It's an incredible, incredible thing. Now, another image we have for this is the single eye. Because if I asked people on the street, how many eyes are you looking out of? Everyone would say 2. What's your problem? But actually, when I look, I'm not looking out of 2 eyes. I'm looking out of one or nothing, or a huge openness. And to bring our attention to this, hold your hands out like this. See, and you see 2 holes with a different image in each hole. Now slowly put them on like glasses and notice what happens to the dividing line. When you've got them right on, what has happened to the dividing line? It's disappeared, yes. The 2 become 1. One eye. This is very easy to communicate. Whether or not it means something to you is another thing. I hope it does, but that's out of my power to determine. But everyone has the experience. If you bring your hands like this, you can make them disappear all the way around this single eye. Try it. It's yeah, your hands disappear into the great void. You know, in Jurassic Park or something, the thing about the dinosaurs or something is that they will notice movement. So if you're caught with a dinosaur nearby, one of these raptors or something, don't move, because they won't be able to distinguish you from the background. But if you move, you've gone, right? They'll eat you up. That's the thing about doing an exercise like this. If you bring your hands to the edge, the movement brings your attention there. Just try it again, you see. Now, you see it disappearing all the way around into what, you see? This vast openness in which everything is happening. Now, I would say that we're born headless, and as we grow up, we put our heads on. Society gives us a head. It's brilliant. That's becoming a person. That's being socially aware. But we're only halfway through the journey if we stop there. There's a whole other phase of life which is reawakening to our headlessness, reawakening to who we really are, and living as that, yet still remaining conscious of who you are as a person. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. We might think of it as 4 main stages of our lives. I'm just going to tell you a little story before I talk about the 4 stages. I've done several workshops in Moscow, and lovely friends there. And a friend of mine, Natasha, a lot of people are called Natasha in Russia. Natasha, she actually has a very moving story, which she's been open about. And she had a powerful experience of this, but just came out of the blue. And it was disorientating. And of course, no one around her understood what had happened to her. I'm open. I'm space in which the world is happening. I'm still, and the scenery moves through me. I have everyone's face but my own. You know, they put her in a mental hospital. Yes. Dreadful. I mean, dreadful. Dreadful. And eventually she came out. You know, and then she told me she found the headless way. We've got Russian pages. She found the headless way, and suddenly she'd found someone else who understood what she was talking about. And this is very important for most of it, very important for me to have friends to share this with. I do not have students. I go around making friends. Because as soon as you experience this, which is so simple, you're equal. I cannot see my headlessness more clearly than you, or less clearly. So now we are equals. We're, I would say, all looking out of this openness, but having our own different reactions. And that's the wonderful thing of having friends. Well, anyway, Natasha, her heart just, you know, someone else understands. And she came to a workshop. And met others who are headless. Now, she was walking down the street one day in Moscow when a young boy of about 8 years old stopped her. Just someone she did not know, out of the blue, and said, "Can I do a magic trick with you? Can I show you a magic trick?" Natasha said yes. He said, "You see these 2 donuts? pastries, round circular pastries. I can make these two become one. Do you know where we're going with this? So he said, watch. And he put them on. He said, see? And Natasha, of course, understood. And didn't say, you're completely mad. Right? Said, yeah, I understand. Then he said to her, would you like to try? And she said, sure. And she put them on, see. And his jaw dropped. He said, oh, it doesn't work for you. Actually, that's very interesting because he was at the transitional point where he was working out how come he's got one eye, but for others he's got two. How come for me I don't have a face, but for you I do, apparently? Each of us goes through this process. As a baby, you're born headless, I suggest. Open. Space for the world. I'm an adult thinking back on that non-verbal state. Fair enough. Space for the world. You're not. If you were a baby and you were put on this chair, you wouldn't be wondering whether your nappy was on straight. You wouldn't be thinking about what you look like at all. You'd be looking. You'd be open, headless. Space for the world. Big. It's our natural condition. This openness. And then from day one, society reflects back to you what they see from a distance. And this is relativity. What you are depends partly on the range of the observer. And at this range, I can see your human appearance. But if I back off, I will lose that, and I will see London. And I back off further, I will see the planet, the star, the galaxy. And if I come in towards you, I will again lose your human appearance and find cells, molecules, atoms. Each of us is like an onion. We have layers. Verifiable and very beautiful. And we identify with these layers. It's not just an intellectual thing. I feel for me, Richard. I feel for my family. I feel for my city, for my country, for my planet. Our identity ebbs and flows all the time. And of course the question is, who's at the center of the onion? Who's driving the Dreambus? Well, you can't tell me because you're out there. You're seeing one of my layers. You're seeing Richard. You can't see what I am at center, just as I can't, in a sense, see what you are at center. But you can look for yourself. And that is being your own authority on who you are. And not letting anybody else have authority over you in that sense and telling you, you are what you look like, full stop. You are what you look like, but you're a whole range of things. But at the center is this treasure, this mystery. Now I invite you just to point again. The great thing is, it's accessible, it's visible, you can experience it. It does not have to be a wow experience. You do not have to react the same as anyone else. You're pointing now at a very special place. You. The place you're looking out of. I find no thing here. Open space, clarity, stillness. And I look out from here into the world. And I am room for the world. And I find no dividing line between this open space and what's in it. Now, we're born this way, and from day one, at this range, society reflects back our identity. I am Richard, you are Richard. You know? You are Scott, you are whoever. And the one you see in the mirror over there, which is showing you what you look like at that range, this is very beautiful because it really integrates spirituality and science. It all comes together. It makes sense. It's true. Just as in parenthesis, this is a great work Douglas Harding did. He was a great philosopher, and he found this. He was searching for years, thinking deeply about his identity, and then suddenly he saw it. And it is this simple. But then he had to shake it. And he did a tremendous amount of work integrating, in terms of our modern understanding of the world and the self, this experience. So we're born headless, and then society reflects back from this range our identity and says, that one in the mirror is who you are. So in effect, what we do is we accept society's view, we reach into the mirror, pull the image out, flip it the other way around and put it on. You never really do that. I've never done it. I've never seen my face here. But society is so overwhelmingly powerful that I accept that view of me as me. And I accept that that view that you've got of me now is here. It's vital to do this. If you don't do this, you don't identify with yourself as a person and you don't take responsibility. So that as a child, we're still coming from this openness, but we're taking on this identity. It's a very special time. It's very creative because you're still open, you're still playful, because this source is so creative. It's open, alive, dynamic. And as a child, you're joining in the game of being a person. But you're not fully in the game yet. By the time we're adults, we're in the game. I am Richard. Of course I'm not headless. How ridiculous. Of course I'm not no thing, full of everything. That is completely nonsense. I've bought into your view of me. I've accepted your view of me. It's vitally important to do this. There's nothing gone wrong. But now I've closed down my awareness of the source. The source is here, but I've closed down my awareness of the source. And I've become small, and I've shrunk, and I've become separate. And we all know how that feels. There's a plus, and there's a minus. And society then says, that is the end of the story. That is who you are. You have grown up. You have become aware of who you are in society, identified with that, and are hopefully taking responsibility more or less for being that one. And that's it, and then you die. Except it's not the end of the story. It's halfway through. And when you see this, in whatever way you come home, it doesn't matter. Come home to the same place. You awaken to the difference between what society tells you you are and who you are. And who you are is so different from who society says you are. But you don't have to reject what society says. That's part of the story. This has profound implications in every area of one's life. Of course, the thing is not just to glimpse it once, but to go on glimpsing it and bring your attention again and again to this openness. I mean, it's more like fun than hard work. Notice when you're driving that you're still and the scenery moves. But when you're with anyone else, you have their face instead of your own. We trade faces, true? Yes. Now that is rather it doesn't mean to say life is always easy. It's not. Life is often difficult. But the difficulty comes in this space. You're not a thing up against life, you see, when you pay attention. You see, you're the space in which it happens. I'm sure this is familiar. But suddenly, from thinking one's life had closed down and that was it, suddenly it's all open again. And who knows what might emerge out of this openness. This present moment is emerging, moment by moment, mysteriously, out of this emptiness. Isn't it? Seeing things as they are given. Now, I think probably when I came across the headless way, I mean gradually, at one level, you see it perfectly. You can't half see this openness, this space. You've got it. You're looking out of it. There's no boundary. Then you start to discover so many things that society had repressed. The world is as if we have had our eyes closed. The world is so different. I mean, it dances. From the outside, you walk across the room. You pay attention to your point of view. The room is flowing through you. You never go anywhere. I haven't come to this venue from my home. This venue has arisen in me. But because I am socially aware, I know that for you, I've arrived here from somewhere else. I can accept both. Because if you ask yourself, you ask yourself, well, why did I'm the one, I've always been the one. It's true, isn't it? Yes. Once you see this, you say, well, I've always been this. That's the nature of it. I mean, however you express it, you put it in different words, react differently. Sometimes we meet someone and they're seeing this and they're so full of joy and it's wonderful. They think, well, I don't feel that joyful. Obviously, I haven't got it. Well, you have. You're just reacting in a different way. But why then, I asked myself, as the one, why did I go through this whole process of forgetting who I was? It seems I completely forgot who I was. It's true, isn't it? We forgot. I did. I'm remembering now. Are you remembering now? You're seeing now. Seeing now. I think because it's a story, but in the beginning, the one was just one. Like as in the beginning of your life. As a baby, you had no developed awareness of others. But you developed awareness of space. You wouldn't have known, you wouldn't imagine the room next door, nor of time. You wouldn't have yet taken on board the concept of time. So in other words, at the beginning of your life, put very simply, you were one with no awareness of others. You were here with no awareness of there. And you are now with no awareness of then. In the beginning was the one. And the one was very happy because the one was. I mean, it is a great achievement to be. And there's no one responsible but you you don't know how you did it. And this is the basic miracle. You are. The one is. It's fresh. It's now. But you see, in the story then, in the beginning, the one, you see, was so happy. Eternal bliss, as they say, and joy. So happy. It's a story. But this is really what was, in a sense, you could say, right at the beginning of your life. But then after a while, you thought, this is so brilliant to be. So brilliant. No one else has done it. I've achieved being. This is so brilliant. I'd love to share it. But I'm alone. And there's no one to share it with. And also, I'm a little bit bored. I mean, it's very nice being, but I'd rather like somewhere to go. And someone to go with. I'd like an adventure, but I mean, there's just being. So what I obviously need to do is create others and create a world and go on adventures. Right? See? Well, I don't know how you did it, but you did it. Now, this is a story of growing up, because growing up is becoming aware of you as an individual. Because you could say at a very early stage of development, you kind of came, you were the center of the world. Babies are. But it wasn't much fun Others are just kind of pictures in consciousness. They're not real at that level. It's not really, it doesn't really do the thing. And in the story, you realize as God that actually in order to really have genuine others to talk to and to share being with and to go on adventures with, you need to profoundly identify with one of the characters. And this involves forgetting your God. Because as long as you know your God somewhere in the back of your mind, it's a game. And you don't treat it seriously, like a computer game, Oops, that's the end of that avatar. We'll just have another one, No big deal. But you realize that's not quite good enough. You realize you've got to forget your God. And at this point in the story, you pause and you think, well, that sounds good, but is there any guarantee that I'll remember? No. But after a while you think, I'm just going to take the risk. It's too boring being on my own. And so that's when, as an adolescent and an adult, you forget your God. Now it's like in the Matrix, I think we were talking about the Matrix, like, if you take this pill or you take that pill. But if you take that one, you've forgotten you've taken it. Right? You choose to be a person and then you forget you chose. That's the deal. Hopefully, there'll be a sign somewhere further down the road that reminds you. And so, at that point in the story, we've forgotten who we are. We're overlooking this terribly obvious thing. But now, we are profoundly convinced of ourselves and of others. And we're profoundly convinced of the reality of the world and of time. Now, in my experience, when you now fortunately stumble across a reminder that somehow you, as who you really are, put down for you to come across later. This works for me, What an incredibly simple reminder. You're walking along the path and there, whoa, oh my God. I'm glad I left that on the roadside to wake me up. Now, does that mean now that you are no longer identified with being the one in the mirror, and that you no longer treat others as other, and that you no longer react as if the world is real and time is real? Not in my experience, no. And this is the point. You have both. Because what I really wanted as the one was to have real others to share my joy of being with. And here we are. Now, from the first person point of view, there's no one here and there's no one there. You're a picture in consciousness. I have no direct evidence that you are real. I have no direct evidence that there's London out there or there's tomorrow. True? It's an idea. But I act as if I'm here and you're there. I act as if I'm going to have to finish in 20 minutes. I act as if there's somewhere beyond what I can see. I hold both. I enjoy being the one. And I enjoy sharing it with apparent others It's not just apparent, it's so profoundly in us, this sense of self and other. But it is such a beautiful thing. Until we see who we are, it's a problem in a way. When we see who we are, it's a profound, in my experience, a profound appreciation of self and other within the one. And now, everything is different. You know, for me, my voice is coming out of silence. I don't know what exactly it's going to say. It's just coming out in the moment. It's arising in the silence, isn't it? So whose voice is this? It's happening in the one consciousness, isn't it? Yes, because I don't want just one voice. The whole point was to have many voices, yes? In the one consciousness. Many different tones of voices, many different faces, many different reactions. Notice what I call the single eye again, you see. Now, anything in the room that you look at has a boundary, if you like. And you can compare it to something else in terms of size, say. You know, so my body is, I suppose, smaller than the size of that desk, right? But bigger than the bottle. So in this sense, size is relative. And everything you look at has a background. The background is the wall behind me. It's like a picture on a wall. It's got something all the way around it. Now be aware of the whole eye. You know, my hands go off all the way around here. Now how big is that? Well, I don't find a second eye on the right to compare it with. Do you? No. Do you? No. You can imagine one, but that's within your eye again. There's only one. Does anyone find a second? No. It's a very amusing thing, you know. We are many, but we only find one. Well, we find one and many, I would say. Now, when you look at that, yeah, it's on its own. It's on its own. You can't say how big it is, because you can't say it's bigger or smaller than another one, because there isn't another one. Amazing, isn't it? I mean, how did we miss that one? Well, because we're so hypnotized by society saying there are many, we just don't see it. Or if we see it, we don't take it seriously, because society says it's nonsense, you see. But now we just distinguish between what society says and what you experience. And you don't have to rubbish either. You accept both. Society says there are many, brilliant. See, I find one, brilliant, one and many. I cannot say how big it is. It has no background. I mean, anything you look at has a background, like a picture on a wall. But this is hanging in nothing. I don't find it set against a bigger background. It's true, isn't it? Yeah. Whether or not that, it doesn't have to mean the same to you as it means to me. You've got the experience, then see how that speaks to you. You don't have to manipulate the meaning. Let it speak to you. This is direct perception. Then the meaning flows from this, and the feelings flow from this. The perception is always accessible, nothing full of something. Now, a very interesting thing is if you close your eyes. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Where's the room gone? I don't know. Open your eyes. Now here is a magic. Socially, I understand. You see my eyes closed and open, and the room remains. From my point of view, I make the room disappear and reappear. True for you? We know it in our hearts. We just, I suggest, need the courage to say yes to our own experience, whatever it means. Find out what it means to you, and distinguish between that and what society observes. And they are not in conflict. They fit hand in glove. It's a very beautiful arrangement. That the one manifests. See, is manifesting as Richard, or cells, or as a planet. So now, close your eyes again, you see, and I experience a kind of darkness. Now, I don't find a second darkness on the right. I think you don't either. Is that true? Yes. There's only one. I can't say how big it is. I can't compare it. It's not set in a greater context. It's floating in nothing. Floating in consciousness. These are words to describe a non-verbal experience. So choose your own words, or don't use words at all, whatever. Now keep your eyes closed for a moment and notice your body sensations. And each individual sensation, is changing, is different. And you can compare them. One might be a pleasant sensation, one unpleasant, and so on. But how big is the whole field of sensation? Well, I don't find a second field to compare it with. There's only one. Now open your eyes. It's still true. I only experience one field of body sensation. I do not experience yours. I cannot say how big this field of sensation is because there isn't another to compare it with. I can't even locate it here. It's everywhere. So from my point of view, my sensations are everywhere. I feel big. It's as if the sensations blend with you, with the stairs, with the stars. I don't find any way, privately, from my point of view, of separating these sensations from the rest of the world. But I accept socially that my sensations are in this body and yours are in that one. Profoundly I accept that. And this is the one appreciating the many. So now we close our eyes again. It's attention to the way things are. And now pay attention to sounds. And some sounds are loud and some are soft. And some are human and some are mechanical. And some you like and some you don't like. But how big is the whole field of sound? I do not find a second field to compare it with. I don't find this field of sound placed in a larger context. It's in silence. Silence is a word. Makes it sound like something it's not. There's only one field of sound. All the voices, all the sounds are within me. Now open your eyes. It's still true. This voice is in your consciousness. Isn't it? Yes. So, socially we say this is Richard's voice and this is Fred's voice or Diana's voice. Socially, see? But privately, I hear that both voices are mine. I have no idea really what this one is going to say any more than what that one's going to say. I can say one's there and one's here, but they're both in this openness, this silence. It is a different way of listening and of being with others when you take on their voice. You hear it deeply. It's your voice. Within you. There's no distance. Now close your eyes again and be aware of what you're thinking and feeling. And you might just manufacture some thoughts, as it were, and slowly count to 5 and imagine the images. Those are what we call mental images. Or imagine the face of a friend. Or be aware of how you felt when you got up this morning, or when you came in this room, or how you're feeling now. Feelings and thoughts are changing. You can distinguish between different ones. Some you like, some you don't. But how big is the whole field of thinking and feeling and reacting, of mind, if you like? How big is it? Well, I don't find a second one to compare it with. I cannot say how big it is. And actually, I can't distinguish it somehow, divided off from the darkness or the sensations. It's all going on together in this no mind in this space. So now open your eyes. Isn't it true that from your own point of view, the only thoughts and feelings you directly experience are your own? Is that true? Yeah, see. And you take on trust that I'm thinking. So we distinguish between the private, the one, and the public, the many. And we enjoy both. So privately, my thoughts are the only ones in town. And my feelings are the only ones in town. And they're not located in a thing here. They're at large. This is very good for the mind. To take on board social conditioning is to accept that your mind is not at large, but is in here, and is small, and is separate by several meters physically from the world. And there's all this buzzing mind and feelings going on here, and there's the world there. There's a lot of things going on in a very small space. And society is telling you that all the time. No wonder we think, I just better sort this stuff out. It's such a mess. Well, I speak for myself. Now what happens? What is the therapeutic value of awakening to who is driving the Dreambus? What's the therapeutic value? It's seeing that your mind is at large. It is freeing your mind. Freeing the mind in the sense of letting it be big. Letting it be where it is. It's not a kind of manipulation. It's part of the scene, just as there are chairs, there's mind, and there's feelings and reactions. It actually is a very different way of seeing the world, because if all the feeling and thought is here and the world is there, it's a kind of a dead world. But when you see, experientially, that your mind, just as your sensations, blends with the world, it's the world thinking. It's the world feeling. It's a living world. It's awesome. It's shocking. It's not something that you say, oh, I know that now. What's the next thing? It's something you keep coming back to, and because every time one looks here at this single eye, it's as if you've never done it before. It's fresh. It's not a learned thing. There's only now. But this is so sane, so natural and normal, and it is everybody's birthright. No one here can see their own face. You see, we come back to the direct experience. Empty. It's very plain, you see. People, you know, when they say, oh, the headless way, oh yeah, I heard about that. You know, headless way, ha ha ha, you know, thinks he hasn't got a head. How mad is that, you see? until you have either the simplicity or the courage or the need to look. I have a friend who 10 years ago came by. It was the first time I met him. And we shared the headless way. And of course, everyone gets it. So you can't see your face. You can't pretend you haven't got it. I mean, you can pretend you haven't got it. But I mean, can anyone deny that they cannot see their face? When you put it so simply, you see, it may mean nothing to you. That's a separate thing. And if it means nothing to you, you won't go on with it. It has to mean something, I suspect, for you to bring it into your life and treat it seriously and so central that you live from it consciously. That's the point. But it's very, very helpful to have friends who are doing it too. That's why I am here, in a sense. I'm here to celebrate the one. But I'm also here, hopefully, to make some friends, because it's really infectious. And we are friends. This is not student-teacher. We are equal on the level of this openness. But anyway, this friend, I met him 10 years ago, and he got the point, but it didn't quite do the job for him, whatever the job was. I suppose he needed to feel better. And so, but anyway, he turned up just a few months ago, 10 years later. And he'd tried quite a number of things. The latest one was surrender to the present moment, which he'd been able to do for a while and then couldn't do it. Do we know that one? Yeah. Anyway, he came back to this, and it was now meaningful to him. He wasn't looking, as he said, for bells and whistles. He just wanted the truth. And one of the things that I think impelled him to accept this was he had cancer. And there was no time to wait. And he tried everything, and he thought, I'll just come back to this. Now, I think it's inspiring for him to be, to share with me. But I think it's more inspiring for me to be with him. I am astonished. And he has somehow just said, yeah, that is true. I'm going to live from that. I want to live from that. I want this. I mean, to say no to this is to say no to wealth and joy and creativity and fun. I mean, life is not always easy. But you now have a place that is free. It's, as he said, as many people said, it's a kind of refuge. It's not a refuge that divorces you from life. It's a full embracing. And you can share this with anyone who's interested. It's a rather beautiful thing to share, isn't it? Face to no face, we call it. Trading faces. No one can stop you trading faces with them. I am receiving you now in the space here. This is not because I have achieved anything. It's the way we're all built. We are built open for each other. This is being built for loving. Just imagining what you look like. The social view is seeing yourself as face to face. Fair enough. Now we're also including this private, secret kind of view, face to no face. Everyone's face is your own. I'm not you, and I am you. And as this friend says, it's just like you're just resting in the arms of the one. It's sort of under there, and it goes around the back, and it's everywhere. goes through this openness. What is it, you see? What is it? Well, you are looking out of it. So don't wait for anyone else to tell you. Have a look. And you may not be able to say, but you are experiencing it. Any questions? Reflections? I am blessed because I meet a lot of people I share this with. I go around doing workshops a lot. And I came across this when I was a teenager. And I had been looking and stumbled upon this. And I thought, wow. Those are amazing experiments. They're all on the website. There's lots more. There's ones we can't do in this format. They're great. So, God, that's so direct, you know. Wow, that really makes sense, you know. And wow, why isn't everybody enjoying this? And in those days, like 1970, you know, I just went and visited Douglas Harding a lot. He had an open house, you know, he didn't pay anything. He just went and hung out, and other people came, and we did some of the experiments, and we explored, you know, reflected. But there's no sense someone had got it and someone hasn't, you know. I mean, oh, well, no, I haven't quite got the fact that I can't see my face yet. I really do see myself moving along the road, you know. I really do see my face at the same time as yours when I look at you, yes. No. But this means nothing to me. All right, well, that's a very interesting reaction, isn't it? That's a valid reaction. Well, don't just glimpse it and say, well, I hope. You don't just glimpse it this morning and say, well, that was interesting, what's the next thing? You've got to give it a go. But there's a lot of support around, a lot of support through the website, the videos, and email me, and Skype meetings free, you know, because if you want friends who are exploring this, they're there. And that's partly why I love going around doing workshops, because I get to hang out with myself in the form of others and hear how it is from there. And so when I was young, I came across this, and Douglas was sharing it, and he'd spent 20 years without being able to share it. Everyone said he was mad. Well, I mean, what do? You can't just say, well, all right, I'm mad. I mean, you can see it's true. And he thought, well, I'd probably die without being able to share this, you know. But it's true. He did it. Huge amount of fantastic work on this. The Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth is one of the very great philosophy books. It is inspiring. It's a beautiful view from here. It makes sense. But anyway, eventually, after 20 years, he shared it. I thought, I can die now. You know, because in a way, it is very important to share it. That, in a way, is half the point of the whole adventure, is to share the joy of being in a million different ways. Yes? Yeah. And here is this which we all are, which is indivisible, where no one is different from anyone else. It unites you with everyone. It's not a feeling, it's not an emotion, it's not a thought, it's a perception. Look for your head, look for your eyes. See your hands disappear. When you're driving, you're still. When you're with another person, it's face to no face. When you close your eyes, you have no boundaries. Your mind is at large. There are a million ways home. And when I used to go along and made friends with Douglas's friends, with Douglas and everyone, you couldn't for a moment pretend you'd got something that someone else hadn't, I mean, just ridiculous. So I grew up in a way in a miniature society where this was normal. Really, yeah. Now I find that society growing and growing. And people are popping out of everywhere saying, yes, wow, yes. And then someone just recently emailed me. I sent it out on our newsletter. And she'd come to a workshop a year ago. And she'd been test driving it for a year. And I hadn't known she was test driving it for a year. And she's a cello player. And some years ago, she gave up playing because she was so self-conscious. She was so frightened in front of others, she couldn't play anymore. She started teaching. She loves it. Well, after a year of practicing the headless way, she was practicing playing the cello headlessly on her own. See, your body comes out of the emptiness, doesn't it? My body comes out of the emptiness here. Yours comes out of the emptiness there. It's headless. You disappear around about here. So you're playing the cello, I suppose, and you've got the cello in your body, and then now, this is a profound therapy in terms of self-consciousness. Doesn't mean to say you don't feel self-conscious. I feel self-conscious now. But now you, in a way, you could say, for myself, I'm seeing I'm completely invisible. Now, how freeing is that? Completely invisible. Oh. And then to communicate that. This is the power of communication. That's why, I mean, it's not a circle here, it's this in chairs like this. So it's less easy to kind of communicate, I suppose. But the sharing of this is a very powerful thing, because every day in society we affirm our separate individuality. Someone says, Richard, I go, yeah, I'm doing that 1,000 times a day, in one way or another, every day. I will do it till I die. So if you don't do that as you grow up, we've got to finish in a minute. I'll wind up now. If you don't do that as you grow up, you don't identify with yourself. Now that you are aware of who you really are, if you feel it's appropriate, express it. In society, come out as who you are. The person probably who benefits most from this is me, because I'm coming out again. I'm saying, I'm the one. But anyway, just to finish, this friend has been driving this for a year, because she just said no to any engagements. She wrote to me and says, I've said yes. Because you can see how this can help if you're afraid of being in front of the public, because you're gone. You're empty. So let's just point again. And we'll take a photograph and put it on the internet. And then you won't be able to deny it. Yeah, simple. Do look at the website, do get in touch, and I'm around,
A wonderful way to begin today. Thank you very much indeed.